In today's video, we're going to take a look at the Lightroom Classic Crop tool and provide a little tutorial. We're going to show you some things that maybe you know and find a few hidden secrets inside that are a little difficult to come by, but once you find them, I think they'll really help you crop your photos a little bit better. Hi, my name is William Beam. I am a portrait photographer in Central Florida. I'm also the co-host of a photography podcast called I Like Your Picture. There'll be a link in the show notes below, so check that out if you like to. All right, why don't we go ahead and get started and take a look at the crop tool in Lightroom Classic. Okay, so I've got a photo selected here, and you can see that it's a bit wide. I have a tendency to shoot wide because I know that I want to crop down later on. The purpose for that is because I never know exactly what crop I'm going to need. Do I need something vertical? Do I need something horizontal? Or do I need something that's a special case for social media? There's different crop resolutions that you may want for, let's say, Facebook or Pinterest or various tools like that. So I like to shoot a little bit wide and then crop down later. Some people like to shoot and get their crop perfect in camera. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a matter of taste and preference. But if you're like me and you need to crop after the fact, let's go ahead and take a look at that. The first thing you want to know is the shortcut. Hit the letter R, and it will take you out of the library and into Develop, and you'll see the crop overlay tool here. And it starts off with basically a rule of thirds grid. Very common, very recognizable. There are a couple things you can do right off the bat. I want to point out the cursor changes. So if you're not sure, take a look. You've got this little angular kind of tool at the lower corner on the right side, and then there's just like 4 dots. So what that does is just let you know that you're in the crop mode. As you move up to a corner on one of these handles, you see how it changes, and that's what lets you know that you're in position to go ahead and move. Same thing if I come over to this side, and it'll move there. If you're not near a corner and you're near one of these handles above, it changes once again, so you can crop and move down. Now, by default, if you're not holding down anything else, when you grab one of these handles, it keeps the aspect ratio. In other words, this is shot, I think, was this a 2x3 kind of shot? You can change the aspect ratio, and there's a number of them over here that we'll go through, but it keeps the aspect ratio. Typically, that's a good thing, because if you're going to send a photograph out to print, various print sizes have specific aspect ratios, and you'll see that on the print site or the place that you go to, and you'll want to export your photos within a given aspect ratio. Same thing if you're going to go online. So for example, I do blogging, and a lot of the aspect ratios I need, let's say in WordPress for a featured image, the graphic that shows up at the top is a 16:9 aspect ratio. So I'll need to go ahead and change my photograph to a crop at a 16:9 aspect ratio. If you want to freehand it, take a look over here on the side. You'll see this little padlock. Unlock that. That's what's keeping the aspect ratio locked. So now when you come over here and you grab this handle, notice how you can just kind of move it any which way you want. That's good if you have a knowledge of it specifically how you want it to look, or if you don't care, this is just something that you're going to do online only and you're not worried about printing, you can move this any way you want. Honestly, I like keeping my aspect ratio locked. I want to keep it as as I shot it to start with, and then I want to start changing the aspect ratio within one of these locked-in tools. Okay, so let's take a look at aspect ratios. Over here, you see as shot, there's original, custom, and then you get down to these presets, 1x1, 4x5, which is also an 8x10. And same thing with this is like your typical school sheet of paper, 5x7, 2x3, which is, if you're into Pinterest, 2x3 is the ratio they go to, is like 1000 by 1500. And then you've got a few others over here. As I said, I like the 16:9. Some people who are doing blog featured images will go with 16:10. So let's say that you want to enter a custom resolution for a Facebook cover. That's going to be 820 by 315, kind of an odd number. You can go ahead and put in the pixel resolution there and hit OK. And then you see the crop automatically goes to that. Now, if we look at this on the aspect ratio, you'll see it's added 820 by 315. If I wanted to go ahead and do something else, let's say for Pinterest, I could put in 1000 by 1500. But since that works out at 2x3, it's just going to take me right back up here. So in other words, if you put in a resolution that already exists as one of the built-in, it'll just simply change it to that. But you can have up to 5 of these custom resolutions and make them for things that you do over and over again. And you can always come back to as shot, or let's say that you move it down over here and you want to just simply reset your crop. On a Mac, you can hit Shift Command R, and I think that's Shift Control R on Windows. Could be an Alt, I don't know. I haven't used Windows in quite a while. but just go ahead and give that a shot. It'll reset your crop back to the original. Now let's go ahead and talk about overlays. You come in here and you see this rule of thirds, and there's nothing obvious that tells you that there are other overlays here that you can use. There's a few things in here that can help you out. The first one is just hit the letter O, and you'll cycle through a bunch of different types of overlays. And this one looks close to the rule of thirds, but it's actually more of a golden ratio. So in other words, it's kind of more along the lines of the golden spiral, golden ratio, and phi, or is it pronounced phi? I never know these things because I'm not a mathematician. This one actually works better than the rule of thirds because it just gives you a more pleasing idea of where to place your subject. So we'll go ahead and hit O again. And there's the golden spiral that we were talking about. And this one shows crop frames. For example, if you want to understand how your photo crop is going to look, if it's a 5x7 or if it's a 4x5, or up here along the top here, we have 2x3, then that kind of gives you an idea there. So by default, it's 2x3, but you see how much you're going to lose when you start cropping in for these different aspect ratios. And of course, you've got a grid as well, and then it just cycles back to the beginning. Okay, so let's say that you get an overlay like this, and you don't think it works for your photograph. It would if it were just in a different rotation. Hold down the Shift key, hit the letter O, and then you'll see you kind of move this back and forth to see how it works for your photograph. And you can just let go of the Shift key, hit O, you'll move to this rotation. And then now you come to the golden spiral, hold down the Shift key again, and you can start moving this around to see where is the best place for this with your photograph. And the same thing here, if you're looking at the aspect ratios, if you hold down the Shift key, you can see how it looks in portrait or in landscape resolution. Let's say that you're cycling through these and you don't use all of them, and maybe you just want to use a few of them to cycle through. You can control that. Come over here to the tools setting and go down to the crop guide overlay, and then a little further down, choose overlays to cycle. And this gives you a little checkbox. You can turn these on or off. So for example, if you know that you never want to see the grid, you can just uncheck that. And if you don't use the center, you can uncheck that. We'll hit OK. So now as we start to hit the O key, and we go through, that center didn't show up and the grid isn't showing up. So you can turn things on or off. Another thing that you can do is, let's get back to the one with the aspect ratios. You only see 3 of them here. Go up to the tools, go back down to the same place where we have the crop guide overlay, and then now choose aspect ratios. I mentioned that I like 16:9, and you can see it showing right there. So if you want 4:3 or 1:1, you can just choose the ones that you want, deselect the ones that you don't want, hit OK. And now you've got a better look. And we can, again, hit the O key. And you can see this is my 16:9. I can see what's going to happen there. And as we start pulling these in, you see how that looks and what part of the photograph you're going to have in there. This one's a little bit trickier. So if you look with the golden spiral, this should be kind of on the subject's face. Now, there's a few things you can do. You can go ahead and pull this down and move your subject around to try and get it right where you want to. And sometimes it doesn't quite go because you just simply can't move further down that way. So you end up, let's say that this is what I want, but what aspect ratio am I in? You can still use the golden spiral and then come over here to the side and let's say, remember, I want a 16:9 aspect ratio, and that changes things dramatically. So now I'm in aspect ratio I need. I've got the golden spiral where I want it. And let's take a look at that. If you want to commit to one of your crop overlays, just hit the enter key. And then suddenly we've got a very different photograph. I think it looks nicer because, one, we've gotten rid of a lot of wasted space that we didn't need. And 2, he's in a pleasing position. It's not the only position that may work. So let's go back. I'm going to hit the R key. And I'm going to hit the escape is a way to get out of that crop tool. So let me get back to the R key. And let's say that I want to work with the golden ratio. And in this case, I want to have that centered right on his eye. Now, I can do that a couple of ways. I'm still in the 16:9. I can still pull down on this handle if I want to, make him a little bit larger. And his arm's getting cut off here. Is like, do I want or need that in this shot? Maybe, maybe not. The other part is, do I want or need all this stuff over to the side? I really don't want this light switch and wire coming in. It's not helping me. So some of the things I think about when I'm going through and cropping is, what am I including? What am I excluding? And where do I really want to draw the eye? So if I choose this spot, hit enter, that's a photograph that I like. And if you look at this versus the one we did with the golden spiral, I think they're both good crops. It's just really a matter of taste once you've tried it out. But when you go through these various crop overlays and settings, I think it really helps you come up with the best composition that you're going to export for whatever it is that you need. All right, let's go look at one more thing. I'm going to hit the R key, go back in here. I'm going to go back to set this as shot. And there's a couple of tricks. So let's say that we do I hold down the Option key on Mac or the Alt key on Windows, and I grab this handle, and it makes sure everything works from the center. And that may or may not be something you need. But here's another little trick. Let's say that you need to flip this over. As I pull in, you see that it changes the orientation. And now, instead of working with a landscape, I've got more of a portrait orientation. So I can change the crop working that way. And then I've still got the same thing. So I'm still working with this golden ratio. I'm simply looking at it as a portrait. So maybe if I wanted to put that on Pinterest, that might be a good way to do it. So I can go back over here and work with that. Maybe we'll change this aspect ratio to 2:3, which is what Pinterest is. And I think we're already there because that was the default. You can easily change this from a landscape or portrait orientation to the other. Just hold down the Option or Alt key, drag from the corner, and then it will go ahead and flip as it gets closer to the center. Okay, so let's take this photograph. I'm going to hit the R key to get into the crop mode, and I'm going to move over to the outside. If you can see my cursor, it looks kind of like two arrows on a slight curve, and that will let me change the angle. So if you need to adjust something, that's something that you can do within the crop tool. But there's also this little angle tool over here. If you hit auto, it will go ahead and try and correct things for you. So sometimes you may need to go ahead and adjust alignment. It's kind of the same thing as the transform and upright tool. It's just simply built into the crop tool over here. Just a quick and dirty tip for you. Quick question. When you look at the crop overlays, which one is your favorite? Do you just want to stay with the rule of thirds, or did you find something that you liked with some of the other overlays? Let me know your favorite one in the comments below. All right, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and learned something from it. If you did, I would love it if you would go ahead and like this video. That helps us out so I know what you like and what you don't like. And please go ahead and subscribe and click the bell icon to get notified when I have other videos coming up. I'll be doing more on Lightroom. I'll be doing more on Luminar. And if you have ideas that you want for other videos, let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much. We'll see you again next time.